The Rebbe would refer to the previous Rebbe as Nasi Hadair. So obviously, part of being a Rebbe is to be the Nasi Hadair. Not every tzaddik is the Nasi. I mean, they don't call themselves Nasi Hadair, they don't call themselves Nasi. So a tzaddik is simply a person, private citizen, who happens to be as holy as a human being can get. All his desires, all his interests, all his yearnings are all holy. So he's a tzaddik. If you don't have a Yetzer Hara, you're a tzaddik. It doesn't mean you can influence other people. It doesn't mean you're even obligated to influence other people more than the non-tzaddik. I mean, we're all obligated, you know. Arevim ze bozeh. A Nasi is obviously a public figure. It's an official role. You're responsible. If you say Nasi Hadair, well, then you're responsible for the whole generation, for every Jew in the world, or for everybody. What it says about the Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that during his lifetime there was never a rainbow. Why? The rainbow is there to protect you from a flood. As long as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was alive, he protected. Who did he protect? Jews? Who does the rainbow protect? Everything but the fish. Everything that died in the Mabul is protected by the rainbow. So a Nasi, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was a Nasi, is a person who takes responsibility for the whole generation. Now, what does it mean, he takes responsibility? Any shmendrik can get up and say, okay, I'm responsible. It means it's the kind of soul, it's the kind of neshama that is formed and created to be responsible for the generation. It's not an option. The question is only how well you do your job, but it's not an option. A Nasi is a Nasi. That's the nature of it. So we can explore that, where, when people say, well, what makes him the Nasi Hadair? There's no competition. There's nobody else who wants the job. Nobody claims the job. Who can shoulder that kind of responsibility? So you think your Rosh Hashiva or your Rebbe is a big tzaddik? Fine. He doesn't want the job. There's no competing. There's no. So, what is the uniqueness of a soul who is responsible for the entire world during his generation? So, if you go into more deeply into Hasidic terminology, there are 5 parts to the soul. We have access to 3 parts. On special occasion, the 4th part, which is mazel. It's Mesiras Nefesh. It's bigger than life. It's whatever. But then there's the 5th part, which we very rarely have access to. A Nasi or a Rebbe is somebody who functions constantly all his life on the 5th level. That 5th part of his neshama is not inaccessible. That's him all the time, in everything. So whatever he says, whatever he does, whatever he feels, whatever he thinks, is coming from the 5th part of his soul. And the 5th part of the soul, the Yechida, that's the little piece of God. It's not even a creation. It's a piece of God. That kind of a soul can be responsible for a whole generation. So it's not optional, it's built into the nature of the neshama. We all have the 5th part of the soul. The Nasi, his responsibility is to somehow connect us to the 5th part of our soul. And the 5th part of every soul the Yechida of each individual soul is really one reality. So your Yechida, my Yechida, it's infinite. That is not what separates us. Because Yechida and Yechida are Yechida. They're all one. And that's really the core, the deep essence of the oneness, Achdus Yisrael and Avas Yisrael. What does it mean to love every Jew, even if you've never met him, even if you don't like him? If you don't like, and if you feel separate, and if you feel disconnected, that's on the three lower levels of the soul. But on the Yechida of the soul, you are one. So if you love yourself, you do love him. It's kamecha. As you go about loving yourself, you are loving him if you're functioning on the Yechida level. The mission of a Nasi, of a Rebbe, is to connect everyone with their Yechida, thereby connecting all Jews to each other and connecting all Jews to himself. Why is he able to connect us to our Yechida? Because he's in complete, total, constant contact with his Yechida, or he is Yechida. His job is to bring us up to that level. Yechida means a little piece of God, right? How do you get a piece of God? Even the word infinity can be divided into pieces. A little piece of infinity. How does that happen? So obviously the word piece is not meant to be physical or literal. The Yechida of the Neshama, which is a little piece of God, could mean God as he gets pleasure from his creation. It's not the act of creation. Yechida doesn't create. Yechida is him. But him, in his very essence, finds pleasure in us. That pleasure that he gets from us, that's a little piece of him. Why isn't that all of him? Because it's not him without us. It's him with us. That's a describable part of him. So we call it a piece of him. But even in English, when you say, you want a piece of me, that means you want all of me. You don't mean a piece. You mean you want to get me. So, the fact that a Rebbe is responsible for every soul, the fact that he is capable of reaching every soul, the fact that every soul can respond to him, it all boils down to the same thing. Yechida. It's all one. If it wasn't all one, then he couldn't be responsible for every soul. He wouldn't be able to reach every soul, and not every soul would respond to him.